For centuries, the stars were filled with silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of captivity. In the far reaches of the galaxy, giant prisons floated in the void of space. They were not built by humans. They were built by conquerors, an alien empire that ruled with fear. Inside these prisons, hundreds of species were trapped. Some had wings. Some had claws. Some looked like smoke or shadow. But all were chained, all broken, and all forgotten. The aliens who controlled these prisons were cruel and cold. They called themselves the Zorath. To them, life was nothing but control. They had one law: obey or suffer. And for centuries, every prisoner obeyed. The prisons were vast, like cities made of steel. The walls stretched so high they seemed to cut into the stars. The air was heavy with the sound of machines, with the endless footsteps of alien guards. Every corridor glowed with cold lights. There was no day, no night, only endless time. Most prisoners had lost the will to dream. Generations were born inside cages. They did not remember freedom. They did not even remember the taste of hope, but one did. Among them was a human. He had no weapon, no power, nothing but his will. Yet he was different from the others. Where others looked down, he looked up. Where others stayed silent, he spoke. Every night when the guards left, he sat near the iron bars of his cell and stared at the stars through the cracks in the ceiling. His eyes did not show fear. They showed fire. And when other prisoners asked why he did this, he whispered, "One day I will break these chains." The others shook their heads. They had heard such words before. They believed escape was impossible. They believed resistance was death, but this human did not stop. He studied the guards. He watched the way they walked, the way their machines opened doors, the way their weapons glowed with strange energy. He noticed details that others ignored. The rhythm of footsteps, the seconds between alarms, the moments when lights flickered. He was not just waiting. He was learning. Still, the Zorath were not blind. They sensed something unusual. From high above in the command tower, the alien warden watched the prisoners. His face was pale and sharp, his eyes cold as ice. He noticed the human's defiance. He noticed the way other prisoners sometimes looked at him with a spark of curiosity, almost admiration. "This one is dangerous," the warden hissed. "His spirit is unbroken. That cannot be allowed." Orders were given. The guards were told to watch the human closely. But even under their gaze, he did not bow. One day, a guard struck down a small alien prisoner, a fragile being with thin arms and glowing eyes. The crowd stayed silent, afraid. But the human stepped forward. His chains rattled, but his voice was clear. "Enough!" the guard snarled, raising his weapon. Everyone thought the human was about to die. But he did not flinch. He simply stood there, tall and unshaken. For the first time in centuries, someone had said no. The prisoners gasped. The guard hesitated. Even the alien commander felt a chill. Later that night, the other prisoners whispered among themselves, "Why did he do that? He will be punished. He is a fool. No one can fight the Zorath." But deep inside, a seed had been planted. They had seen something they thought impossible. Courage. The human sat again near the bars, his body bruised but his spirit alive. He looked at the stars and whispered to himself, "They do not know me. They do not know what humans are." In the shadows, unseen by him, other prisoners listened. And for the first time, hope stirred like a small flame in their hearts. But hope is dangerous. In the control room, the alien warden spoke again. His voice was cold, filled with menace. "This human will be watched. If he moves again, if he inspires the others, he will be crushed. I will break him in front of them all." And so the stage was set, a galaxy where freedom was forgotten, a prison where hope was forbidden, and one human, staring at the stars, daring to dream. The silence of centuries was about to be broken. The prison never changed. The lights stayed cold. The air stayed heavy. The guards walked the same path every day. To most prisoners, life was endless repetition. But for the human, every day was a chance to learn. He was patient. He watched. He remembered every detail. He counted the number of guards in the corridor. He timed the moment when the alarm shifted. He listened to the clicks and hums of the machines. To others, the sound was only noise. To him, it was a pattern. But defiance is not only about watching. Sometimes it is about action. One cycle, when the guards marched in, they dragged a prisoner into the open hall. It was a weak bird-like creature with silver feathers and a trembling voice. The prisoner had broken a rule. He had spoken during silence hours. The guards beat him until he fell to the ground. The other prisoners looked away. They had seen this before. They knew better than to interfere. But the human did not look away. He stepped forward, his chains rattling against the floor. "Stop," he said. The hall froze. The words were simple, but they carried a weight the prisoners had not heard in centuries. The lead guard turned, his helmet glowing with alien light. "Back, human," he growled. "Or you die." The human did not move back. His voice was calm but sharp as steel. "You call yourself strong," he said. "But strength is not crushing the weak. Strength is protecting them." Gasps spread through the hall. The bird-like prisoner stared in disbelief. The other species watched with wide eyes. No one had dared speak to the guards like this. Not for hundreds of years. The guard raised his weapon, a staff crackling with energy. He swung it hard against the human's chest. The blow sent him to his knees, pain burning through his body. Still, the human looked up. His eyes burned like fire. "I will not bow," he whispered. The guard struck him again, harder. His blood touched the floor. Yet he did not scream. He did not beg. He only laughed softly through pain, as if to say, "You cannot break me." The other prisoners felt something stir inside them. Fear battled against something else, something long buried. Could it be hope? Later, when the guards dragged the human back to his cell, the prisoners whispered in the shadows, "He is mad." No, he is brave. He will be killed. But he stood against them. For the first time, they argued not about despair, but about courage. The alien commander, the warden of the prison, watched from above. His pale face twisted with anger. "This human is a disease," he hissed. "If others follow him, rebellion will spread. It must be crushed before it grows." His second officer bowed. "Shall we execute him, master?" The warden shook his head. "No, not yet. I will watch him. I want to see how far his defiance goes, and when he inspires hope, I will destroy him in front of them all." In the dark of his cell, the human sat with wounds across his body, but his spirit remained untouched. He traced shapes in the dust on the ground. Not random shapes, plans. The other prisoners crept close. A tall reptilian leaned against the bars.
"Why do you resist?"
It asked in a deep, rumbling voice. "We have tried before. No one escapes. The Zorath always win." The human raised his head. His eyes glowed with quiet fire. "They win because you let them," he said. "They control your body, but not your mind, not your will." A smaller alien, a child born inside the prison, asked softly, "But what if they kill you?" The human smiled, weak but certain. "Then I die standing, not kneeling." The words spread like wind through the prison. Simple, clear, powerful. For the first time, prisoners whispered not about endless suffering, but about possibilities. The next day, when the guards passed, they noticed something strange. The prisoners were looking at the human differently. Not with pity, not with fear. With respect, the guards tightened their grip on their weapons. Something was changing. That night, as silence fell, the human whispered to the stars again. "One day, I will break these chains." But this time he was not alone. From nearby cells, voices joined softly. Different languages, different tones, but all repeating the same idea. One day, one day, one day. It was only a whisper. But in a place where silence had ruled for centuries, a whisper was enough to shake the walls. The warden heard reports of this. He stood before the prison window, staring into the dark void of space. "This cannot continue," he muttered. His clawed hand gripped the railing. "If hope grows, rebellion will follow. The human must be taught fear." He turned to his officers. "Prepare the chains. Tomorrow he will suffer in front of all. I will show them that hope is an illusion." The guards bowed, but the human did not fear tomorrow. He had planted the first seed. The flame had started. And flames are hard to kill. The prison was no longer silent. Something was waking inside it. Something the Zorath had not faced for centuries. Defiance. The prison was alive in a way it had not been for centuries. Whispers moved through the halls like secret winds. They carried one name, one image, the human who dared to stand against the Zorath. Every prisoner had seen it. The chains, the blood, the laughter, the words that cut through fear like a blade. "I will not bow." For the first time, they remembered something dangerous. They remembered hope. The human felt the change too. When he walked through the corridors, eyes followed him. Not with pity, not with sorrow, but with something else. Respect. The reptilian, tall and strong, shuffled closer during food hours. "Why risk death for another?" it asked. Its voice rumbled low as if afraid the guards might hear. The human answered simply, "Because no one deserves chains." The bird-like prisoner he had defended bowed its head. "You saved me, why?" The human smiled faintly. "Because when one stands, others will follow." Those words burned into the minds of all who listened. Simple, powerful, true. At night the human worked quietly. He picked at the rust on his shackles with sharp stones he had hidden. He studied the locks on the food gates. He counted the guards as they walked by. But he did not work alone anymore. The reptilian used its great memory to recall every patrol path. The bird-like prisoner with sharp eyes watched for secret doors in the walls. Even the smallest prisoners, ones ignored by the guards, began to pass messages between cells. The human was teaching them without saying it. Teaching them to resist. Teaching them to fight, the Zorath noticed. From the tower above, the warden slammed his claw against the console. "Look at them," they whisper now. "They watch us differently. This is his doing." His officer nodded. "Shall we execute him now?" "No," the warden snarled. "Not yet. Fear dies quickly, but despair lasts forever. Let him inspire them. Let them believe. Then I will break him in front of all. Their hope will turn to ashes." The next day the guards forced the prisoners into the central square. It was a place of fear, where punishments were displayed. Today, the warden wanted to test the human. Chains bound him tighter than before. The guards struck him, but he did not cry out. He stood tall, bruised but unbroken. The warden's voice boomed across the square. "This human is a fool. His courage is nothing. Watch him suffer and remember, no one defies the Zorath." The human's eyes swept across the crowd. So many eyes stared back, waiting to see if he would fall. Through cracked lips he spoke. "You can chain my hands. You can cut my flesh. But you cannot chain my will." The square fell silent. Every word rang like thunder. The warden hissed, furious. He signaled the guards to strike harder. Blows rained down, but the human only laughed, weak yet steady. "Do you see?" he called out to the prisoners. "They are afraid. Afraid of a man in chains. Afraid of you. Why? Because they know the truth. If we stand together, their empire falls," the prisoners gasped. The guards froze. Never before had anyone spoken such words in the heart of the prison. The warden roared in rage. "Silence him." The guards gagged the human and dragged him back to his cell. But it was too late. The spark had been lit. That night the prison whispered louder than ever. He stood. He laughed in their face. "He is right, they fear us." The reptilian clenched its fists. "We are many. They are few." The bird-like prisoner whispered. "If he fights, I fight too." Even the smallest, weakest creatures whispered the same word over and over. Together, the human sat in his cell, bloodied but smiling. His body ached, but his spirit glowed like fire. When the other prisoners asked, "Why do you not give up?" he answered softly, "Because hope is stronger than fear, and once it spreads, no empire can stop it." He looked at the stars through the cracks above. One day these walls will fall, but not all were ready to follow. In the corner of the prison, a shadow watched silently. A thin, nervous prisoner with dark eyes and trembling hands. He feared the Zorath more than he desired freedom, and as he heard the whispers of rebellion, fear clawed at his heart. If they rise, he thought, the Zorath will kill us all. That night, while the others whispered of hope, he crept toward the guards. He bowed low, voice shaking. "I have information about the human." The guard's eyes glowed cold. "Speak." And so the betrayal began. Above, in the command tower, the warden smiled for the first time. "Good," he hissed. "Let them dream. Let them believe. Tomorrow I will rip their hope apart with my own hands." The stars shone cold outside. The prisoners whispered of freedom, and in the shadows a traitor's words carried doom. The spark of rebellion was burning. But would it become fire? Or would it be crushed before it could rise? The prison was no longer quiet. Hope whispered through its metal walls. For the first time in centuries, the prisoners looked at one another not with despair, but with the faint spark of belief. And that spark came from one man, the human. But hope is dangerous. Hope makes enemies. And not all prisoners were ready to face the fire. In the deepest corner of the cells, a thin figure trembled. His eyes darted left and right. He was one of the prisoners, but unlike the others, his fear was stronger than his courage. To him, the human was not a hero. He was a curse. If the Zorath see us follow him, the Thin One thought, they will kill us all. Better one man die than all of us. So he crept into the shadows where the guards stood. He bowed, shaking, his voice weak but desperate. I know things, he whispered, about the human. The guards leaned closer, their glowing helmets hiding cruel smiles. Speak. And so the betrayal began. The next morning, the prison alarms wailed. Sirens echoed through the steel corridors. The guards stormed into the cells, weapons glowing with deadly light. The prisoners were confused. Some froze, others shouted. But one name was on every lip, the human. He was dragged into the open square, chains wrapped around him tighter than ever, glowing with alien energy. The crowd of prisoners was forced to gather, surrounded by guards. The warden stood tall above them, his pale face twisted with triumph. This, he hissed, is the price of defiance. The human's body was beaten, but his eyes were steady. He looked at the prisoners, at the reptilian, the bird-like creature, even the smallest child. He said nothing, but his gaze was clear. Do not give up. The warden stepped forward. This one believed he could resist. He believed he could lead you. But he is nothing. He will break, and you will see that hope is an illusion. He signaled the guards. The torture began. The first strike was with energy whips. Blue fire cracked against the human's back. The crowd winced, many turning away. The sound of flesh burning filled the air. Still, the human did not scream. He gritted his teeth. He laughed. Is this all you have? He spat, blood dripping from his lips. The warden's eyes narrowed. More. The second strike was worse. They bound his arms to a machine that pulled his muscles apart, stretching him toward breaking. His bones groaned. His chest heaved. Still, he whispered through clenched teeth, You cannot unbreak me. The prisoners stared in shock. They had seen thousands tortured. None had endured like this. The thin traitor stood at the edge of the crowd, trembling. He thought the human would beg, thought the rebellion would collapse. But instead, something else was happening. The more the human resisted, the stronger the prisoners' hearts grew. Their fear was cracking. Their chains felt lighter. No, the traitor whispered. This was not supposed to happen. The warden stepped close, his claws gripping the human's face. Why do you fight? You are nothing. You are alone. The human coughed, spitting blood onto the alien's robes. I am never alone, he said. The warden snarled and struck him across the face. You will die here. The human's voice was faint, but clear enough for all to hear. Then I die free. The words rolled through the crowd like thunder. Something shifted. The reptilian prisoner clenched his fists until his chains cracked. The bird-like one's feathers bristled with energy. Even the smallest, weakest prisoners felt it, a burning in their chest, a need to rise. The warden sensed it too. His cold smile faded. Enough, he ordered. Take him to the deep cells. Lock him away. When his hope fades, so will theirs. The guards dragged the human across the floor, leaving a trail of blood. The prisoners shouted, some weeping, some roaring with rage, but the fire had already been lit. That night, the prison did not sleep. The reptilian spoke in a low voice. We cannot wait. He suffers for us, the bird-like one agreed. If we do nothing, hope dies. Even the small ones whispered, we must act, together. But the traitor sat alone in the dark, shaking. His heart was filled not with courage, but with terror. He had given the human away, and now the weight of it crushed him. In the deepest cell, the human lay chained, his body broken, but his spirit unbroken. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, though no one could hear. They think this is the end, but it is only the beginning. His voice was weak, but his will was fire. And across the prison, in hearts long chained, that fire now burned. The betrayal had brought pain. But it had also brought something far more dangerous for the Zorath rebellion. The prison had never known silence like this. Not the silence of despair, but the silence before a storm. Every prisoner felt it. Something had changed. The human was gone, dragged into the deep cells. But his fire still burned inside them. The reptilian whispered, He suffers for us. The bird-like one hissed, Then we must fight for him. And the smallest prisoners, those who had never even seen freedom, whispered one word again and again, Together, together, together. That night, the rebellion began. It started with the smallest act. A prisoner distracted a guard, coughing and stumbling near the food gates. As the guard struck him, another slipped a stolen shard of metal into the reptilian's claws. The reptilian smiled. Chains snapped. Then came the sound the prison had not heard for centuries. Roars of defiance. The reptilian swung the broken chain like a weapon, smashing into the guards. Sparks burst as metal cracked against alien armor. The bird-like prisoner shrieked, darting forward with blinding speed. Its feathers, sharp as knives, slashed across a guard's throat. The guard stumbled back, shocked. This had never happened. The prisoners were supposed to be broken, hopeless, weak, but not tonight. The alarm screamed. Sirens echoed across the steel corridors. Red lights flashed. The prison shook with chaos. The prisoners surged forward, no longer bowing, no longer silent. They fought with chains, with claws, with anything they could grab. They fought with fury, with desperation, with hope. The humans' words rang in their minds. If we stand together, their empire falls. In the command tower, the warden slammed his claw against the console, his pale face twisted with rage. Rebellion, he hissed. Crush them. Do not let them escape. His officers rushed to obey. Armored troops stormed into the halls, weapons blazing with alien fire. But the prisoners did not scatter. They pressed forward, wave after wave. For every one that fell, 2 more rose. The reptilian tore through the soldiers like a beast unleashed. The bird-like one darted through the chaos, striking fast, vanishing, then striking again. The prison had become a battlefield. And then, in the deep cells, the human opened his eyes. He had heard the alarms, the screams, the fighting. His lips curved into a faint smile. They've begun, he whispered. With strength that seemed impossible for his broken body, he pulled against his glowing chains. They burned his flesh, but he did not stop. With every pull, with every ounce of pain, he thought of the voices that whispered together. Metal cracked. Sparks flew. And then, with one final roar, the chains shattered. The human stood, bloodied, weak, but free. He limped through the halls, grabbing a fallen guard's weapon. His eyes burned with fire. He was not heading for freedom. Not yet. He was heading for the heart of the battle. In the main square, the rebellion reached its peak. Prisoners clashed with guards, weapons against chains, armor against bare hands. The air smelled of smoke and blood. The warden arrived, towering above them all, his pale face glowing with fury. Fools, he roared. You think you can fight the Zorath? You will all die here. The prisoners faltered. His voice was power, his presence terrifying. Some began to back away, and then a voice cut through the chaos. No. The crowd turned. The guards froze. The human stood at the edge of the square, weapon in hand, his body covered in wounds, but his spirit unshaken. He raised his voice, strong and clear. We will not die here. You will, the prisoners roared. The guards hesitated. The fire of rebellion grew into a storm. The warden's eyes narrowed. Kill him! The guards rushed forward, weapons blazing. But the human was not alone. The reptilian smashed through their ranks, roaring like thunder. The bird-like one darted through the air, striking with deadly precision. And the rest of the prisoners surged behind them, a tidal wave of fury. The human fought at the front, every strike filled with purpose. He moved not for himself, but for everyone chained, for everyone broken, for everyone who had lost hope. The warden watched in shock. For the first time in centuries, fear touched his heart. The prison walls shook as battles raged across every corridor. Fires burned. Gates fell. Chains shattered. And above it all, the human's voice rang out, Fight! Fight for your freedom! Fight for the stars! The warden snarled, retreating toward the command tower. If I cannot control them, then I will destroy them all, he hissed. His claws danced across the console. In the heart of the prison, massive engines groaned awake. The ground trembled. The lights turned blood red. The prisoners froze as a terrible voice echoed across the halls. Self-destruct sequence activated. The warden's laughter filled the prison. If I cannot have slaves, then none shall live. I will burn this place to ashes and all of you with it. The prisoners gasped. The fire of rebellion had begun. But now, they had minutes before the entire prison turned to dust. The human tightened his grip on his weapon. His eyes locked on the tower where the warden stood. This ends now, he whispered, and he charged into the fire. The prison shook like a dying beast. Red lights flashed. Sirens howled. Metal walls groaned as the self-destruct countdown echoed through the air. 10 minutes to detonation. Panic spread among the prisoners. Some screamed. Some fell to their knees. But many looked not to the alarms, not to the guards. They looked at the human. He stood in the chaos, bloodied, bruised, but unbroken. His eyes locked on the command tower where the warden waited. "This ends now," he said, his voice steady. The reptilian gripped his arm. "The tower is guarded. You cannot face him alone." The human shook his head. "I must. He is the head of the snake. Cut him down and the rest will fall." The bird-like one leaned close. "Then we will hold the others back." "Go, human. Finish this." The prisoners formed a wall of defiance, roaring against the guards. Chains swung like weapons, claws slashed, feathers cut. The rebellion bought him time, and the human ran. He stormed through burning corridors, past shattered gates, past fallen guards. His footsteps echoed against steel. Smoke filled the air, but his eyes never wavered. At the top of the tower, the warden waited. His pale figure glowed under the crimson lights. His claws curled around a staff of black metal, humming with deadly energy. "You think you can win?" the warden hissed. "You are nothing. One fragile creature of flesh and bone." The human raised his stolen weapon. His body trembled from wounds, but his spirit burned. "Then let us see if flesh and bone are enough." The battle began. The warden struck first, his staff swinging like lightning. Sparks exploded as it smashed against the floor. The human dodged, rolling aside. The shockwave shook the tower, cracking the steel. The human lunged forward, striking with speed. His weapon clashed against the warden's staff. The impact sent pain surging through his arms, but he did not let go. The warden laughed coldly. "You fight with rage, but rage will not save you." The human spat blood, his voice sharp as fire. "I do not fight with rage. I fight with purpose." He struck again, faster, harder. Each blow carried not only his strength, but the strength of every prisoner who had suffered in silence. Outside the tower, the prisoners roared as battles raged. The reptilian tore through soldiers with fury. The bird-like one dove from above, cutting down enemies like arrows. The smallest prisoners darted between armored legs, tripping guards and stealing weapons. 8 minutes to detonation. The prison shook, but still they fought. Still they believed. Back in the tower, the duel raged like thunder. The warden's staff blazed with energy, each strike powerful enough to shatter stone. But the human was faster. He ducked, he rolled. He struck back with relentless fury. The warden snarled, his cold confidence breaking. "Why do you resist? You cannot win." The human's voice rang clear. "Because I am not fighting for myself. I fight for freedom." With a roar, he slammed his weapon against the warden's chest. Sparks exploded. The warden staggered back, his pale face twisted in shock. But the alien was not finished. He raised his staff, channeling pure energy into its core. A storm of light erupted, shaking the tower. "If I fall," the warden hissed, "then all will fall with me." He hurled the energy forward. The blast tore through the air, aiming to consume the human. The human leapt through the flames, his body burning, his will unbroken. He crashed into the warden, knocking the staff away. The two wrestled in raw fury, claws against fists, bone against steel. 7 minutes to detonation. The prisoners below heard the clash, the roar of battle above. They fought harder, driven by the belief that their champion still stood. "Hold the line," the reptilian bellowed. "For the human!" cried the bird-like one. The fire of rebellion burned brighter with every second. In the tower, the struggle reached its peak. The warden's claws slashed across the human's chest. Blood poured, but the human did not fall. He seized the alien's throat, forcing him back against the console. "You are nothing," the warden gasped, his voice breaking. The human's eyes blazed. "I am human." With one final strike, he seized the fallen staff. The weapon glowed with alien power as he drove it straight through the warden's chest. The alien screamed, his pale body convulsing, light bursting from his form. Then silence. The warden collapsed, his body lifeless. The tower shook as the console sparked. The self-destruct countdown froze. System override. Sequence aborted. The prison stopped trembling. The alarms fell silent. The prisoners below looked up wide-eyed. In the tower window they saw him. The human, bloodied, scarred, but standing. And in his hand the enemy's weapon. A roar erupted across the prison. Not of fear, not of pain, but of victory. The chains of centuries had been broken. But as the cheers rose, the human's body wavered. His wounds burned. His strength was fading. He gripped the staff, staring at the stars beyond the cracked walls. "This is not the end," he whispered. "It is the beginning." And with that, he collapsed to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. The prisoners surged forward, lifting their champion high. Their voices echoed through the ruins of the prison. Free, free, free. For the first time in centuries, freedom was real. The prison was no longer a prison. Its walls still stood, broken and scarred. Fires still burned. Smoke still rose. But something greater filled the air now. Freedom. For centuries, the halls had echoed with chains and silence. Now they roared with voices. Thousands of prisoners shouted, cried, and embraced one another. Wings spread wide, claws raised high. Voices in 100 languages all spoke the same truth: we are free. At the center of it all stood the human. His body was weak, covered in wounds. His clothes were torn, stained with blood. Yet his spirit shone brighter than ever. The reptilian bent down, lifting him with ease. "Do not fall, warrior. You led us here." The human shook his head faintly. His voice was hoarse but steady. "I did not free you. You freed yourselves. I only lit the flame. You carried it." The prisoners stared at him, eyes wide with respect. No one had ever spoken like this. No one had ever given them back their dignity. The bird-like one fluttered close. Its feathers glowed faintly in the smoke. "What now?" it asked. "The warden is dead. The guards are broken, but the galaxy is still under Zorath rule. Where do we go?" The human looked toward the stars through the broken ceiling. His lips curved into a tired smile. "Out there," he said, "to the stars, to every world still in chains. Today was not the end. It was only the beginning." The prisoners murmured. Fear still lingered in their hearts. Could they really face an empire? Could they really challenge the Zorath? The human raised his voice, soft but powerful. "You thought you were weak, but look at what you did today. You fought, you bled, you stood, and you won. If we can do it here, we can do it anywhere." His words washed over them like fire. The reptilian growled in agreement. The bird-like one spread its wings wide. Even the smallest prisoners clenched their fists, nodding with new courage. Together, they began to explore the prison, breaking the last of the locked doors. Control rooms were smashed. Armories were raided. Weapons once used against them were now in their hands. For the first time, the prisoners were not slaves. They were an army, but the human's eyes never softened. He knew this victory was fragile. The Zorath would learn of this rebellion. They would come. And when they did, the real war would begin. He stood before the crowd, raising the warden's stolen staff high. The prisoners fell silent. "Remember this day," he said. "The day the chains broke. The day hope returned. The day one prison fell. Tomorrow others will fall too. Not because of me, because of us. Because together we are unstoppable." The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers. In the distance, the stars gleamed. Once they had looked cold and unreachable. Now they looked like a path, a destiny. The bird-like one whispered, "We have no ships. How do we reach the stars?" The human smiled faintly, though exhaustion weighed heavy on him. "Then we will build them, or we will take them. We are free now, and freedom finds a way." That night, for the first time in centuries, the prison was quiet again. Not with despair, but with peace. Fires glowed softly. Prisoners rested, some whispering to each other about homeworlds they had never seen, families they had never known. The human sat apart, staring at the stars. His body trembled with pain, but his spirit refused to rest. The reptilian approached. "You should sleep." The human shook his head. "I cannot. Too much to do. Too many still in chains." The reptilian's deep eyes softened. "Then we will fight with you, until the last chain is broken." As dawn rose over the ruined prison, the galaxy changed. News would spread. Whispers would become stories. Stories would become legends, and at the heart of every tale, one truth would remain. It was a human who lit the fire. From forgotten cages to the farthest stars, that story would carry. Species who had lost hope would hear it and rise again. The Zorath, who once ruled unchallenged, would begin to fear. For they knew now that one act of courage could shatter centuries of control. The human looked at the thousands around him, aliens of every shape and size, all free at last. His voice carried like a promise. "This is only the beginning. Humanity will rise among the stars, and so will all who fight beside us." The crowd roared one last time, a sound that shook the broken walls, a sound that echoed across the void. Freedom had returned. and the galaxy would never be the same.